Faithfulness is the word.
There's a place for you on the battle line. Engage in the fight for America's families. Visit afa.net and then take your position. A message from the American Family Association.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Hurricane Helene expected to slam Florida with major storm surge and winds. Janice Dean has the latest forecast.
We expect rapid intensification to continue over the next several hours as it impacts the Big Bend and the Panhandle of Florida, where we think it's going to make landfall. But this storm is so huge, we are talking about the largest storm in the Gulf of Mexico in history. You know, tropical storm force winds extending over 300 miles from the center of circulation. We're going to see the potential for tropical tornadoes throughout the day, throughout the afternoon, in through the evening. It's going to be extensive power outages, storm surge of 20 feet. That will go to the second story of your home, overtopping homes.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis urging residents to evacuate while they still can.
Certainly, if you're in North Florida, you still have time to execute your plan, but you got to do it now. You have time to get to a shelter, but you got to do it now. Every minute that goes by brings us closer to having conditions that are going to be simply too dangerous to navigate.
The United States and allies are calling for a 21-day ceasefire to allow for negotiations in the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Nate Foy has more from Tel Aviv.
A strike in Beirut. This is after the IDF conducted several strikes on targets that Hezbollah uses to transfer weapons along Lebanon's border with Syria. The IDF says that Hezbollah has fired at least 45 times so far today. International partners try to broker a 3-week ceasefire agreement for a temporary pause in the fighting. That effort led by President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is certainly throwing cold water on those reports, at least for now. His office said this morning that he didn't even respond to the American-French proposal.
The House task force investigating the first assassination attempt against President Donald Trump is holding its first hearing. Brooke Singman has more.
The House Bipartisan Task Force on the attempted assassination of Donald Trump is holding its first hearing today on the July 13th shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania. So local and state officials will testify. That includes members of police agencies working the rally where a gunman nearly took Trump's life. This comes just one day after the Senate released a stunning report on the failures of the Secret Service during that campaign event. So lawmakers found there was no clearly defined individual responsible for planning and security. They also said the rooftop where the shooter stood heavily covered, and the Secret Service was also denied requests for additional assets ahead of time.
Donald Trump has a plan to use tariffs if elected, but not everyone is sold on the idea. More from Chris Woodward.
President Trump has pledged to stop U.S. businesses from shipping jobs overseas and to take other countries' jobs and factories by relying heavily on tariffs.
And I want German car companies to become American car companies. I want them to build their plants here. I want to beat China in electronics production, and we'll be able to do that easily. We have the greatest genius, the greatest minds here, and then we end up building them in different places. A lot of that's really stupid tax policy. I want GE, IBM, and every other manufacturer that left us to be filled with regret and come sprinting back to our shores, and they will.
Dan Savickas, Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs at Taxpayers Protection Alliance, thinks the tariff plan is rather self-defeating.
Because former President Trump has been touting all the revenue that he's supposedly going to generate from the tariffs, and at the same time, he also claims that this will bring a lot of manufacturing back to American shores. The long and the short of it is that tariffs can only do one of those two things. If manufacturing comes back to our shores, there's going to be very little revenue generated from the tariff because they're not going to be paid anymore. Or it's going to generate a lot of revenue, which essentially amounts to a tax increase on American companies that import goods, and it's not going to achieve its objective.
I'm Chris Woodward.
American Family News is available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Tired of campaign ads, candidate rhetoric, and a mailbox full of flyers? Are you thinking of sitting out this election? Don't do it. As Christians, it's our responsibility to be salt and light. How can we influence our nation for godly values if we don't make our voices heard? Show your support for candidates who share our biblical values by voting wisely. Use iVoterGuide.com as a free tool to help you identify those candidates. Be a good steward of your vote on November the 5th. Vote wisely with iVoterGuide.com.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. As the announcer said, Tim Wildman here with Fred Jackson. Good morning, Brother Fred.
Good morning. Feels like the fall here.
Yeah.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah. Yeah, nice weather here where we live in the northeast Mississippi area.
Yeah.
Chris Woodward, good morning.
Good morning.
And how was the weather report in KCKS?
Oh, man, it's just a little bit of heaven up here.
Yeah.
71 degrees, bright, sunny skies.
Beautiful.
Not very much wind. Good golf weather, Tim. I mean, really good weather. Yeah.
Well, that is perfect golf weather. That's good golf weather for that's good weather for any.
I can get you tea time at 1:45.
Perfect. Well, while we enjoy perfect weather, our friends in Florida and Georgia and some other parts of the southeast are about to get hammered. Chris.
That's right. Fast-moving Hurricane Helene was advancing this morning across the Gulf toward Florida, threatening an unsurvivable storm surge in northwestern parts of the state, as well as damaging winds, rains, and flash floods hundreds of miles inland across much of the southeastern U.S., according to forecasters. I posted that story from AFN.net on our Facebook page, so do check that out for more details.
So this, is it called Helene?
Helene, yeah.
Okay, so it's in the middle of I say middle. It's when is landfall?
Yeah, they were saying early this morning was around 8 o'clock tonight. So yeah, it's moving up. It had kind of brushed Yucatan Peninsula, Cuba. It's coming up through there. Some of the outer bands have already hit the western coast of Florida. Rain, some wind. But the big news seems to be the scare for a lot of people is this surge of up to 20 feet in that bend in Florida there. Tallahassee, they're going to get hurricane level winds in Tallahassee.
Tallahassee, I'm guessing I'm guessing Tallahassee 70 miles from the coast, something like that.
Yeah. And then it's going to move up. Atlanta's going to experience some of this. Carolinas, Charlotte.
You know, the report I saw was that there's a chance for like 7 to 10 inches of rain.
Yes.
In Georgia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. In Asheville, North Carolina, even.
That's you talk about, well, especially if it hits the metro Atlanta area, that's shut down the city, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'll flood in Asheville, that little downtown area there, if you get a ton of rain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's in the hills, in the mountains.
And then it's going to swing to the west and hit Nashville. Now, by that time, it's not a hurricane.
Right.
It becomes
the flooding.
A wind and rain event.
But, it's going to hit that bend in, so it's tonight, right?
Yeah, tonight.
Well, now, a 20-foot surge, that's like a 20-foot wall of water that would hit the beach, right? I mean.
Right, and go far inland, too. Maybe further inland is not going to be 20 feet, but who knows? 20 feet, guys, that would wipe out most houses, right?
Yeah. Even the ones on stilts.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You get, if you're a beachfront home. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're a beachfront home.
But this is serious stuff.
I mean, we ought to say it. We got a lot of listeners who are in Florida, Southeast Alabama, Georgia, up into Western North Carolina. And we say to all of our listeners, do what you need to do to prepare. If you need to evacuate, follow the local guidelines, but be ready because Helene is coming ashore with the vengeance in just a few hours.
Yeah.
We do have some audio from Governor Ron DeSantis. This is a soundbite that our Rusty Pugh got earlier today and has been airing a few times thus far this morning. Clip 1.
I mean, certainly if you're in North Florida and you are in an evacuation zone, and there have been evacuation orders that have been issued by the local officials there who are responsible for emergency response, you have time. The time is, though, running out. The conditions are going to continue to deteriorate throughout the morning and into the early afternoon. And then as the time, especially in North Florida, once we get probably in the afternoon, you're going to start to see some really, really hazardous conditions. And the storm's expected to make landfall sometime this evening around 7 o'clock.
Now, that again is Governor and Tallahassee resident Ron DeSantis talking about
that's
the
capital
of
Florida, and that's where the governor's mansion is. So anyway, we'll keep those folks in our prayers because that's going to be
and
hard.
Governor DeSantis has a great record of with regards to recovery. One of the other things he said there this morning is that there are 30,000 linemen, I guess we'll call them, from across the United States that are just outside of that storm area. They are ready to come in. The federal government has already declared state of emergency in the area. So good news will be on the way once this passes, but they're talking about weeks, maybe even months for that critical area in that corner to recover.
Yeah. And as you say, Tallahassee, I guess, is the first major city in the path of Hurricane Helene. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, this could very well have been the top story this morning had we not had the hurricane to discuss. But New York City Mayor and Democrat Eric Adams has been charged with taking bribes and illegal campaign funds from foreign sources. This hit yesterday. It's been developing all night. We'll continue to cover it through today. But the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan alleges in the indictment that Adams, quote, compounded his gains from the illegal contributions by gaming the city's matching funds program, which provides a generous match for small dollar donations. His campaign received more than $10,000 in matching funds as a result of the false certifications, according to the indictment. We do also have some audio this morning from Mayor Adams himself, who said this to the press. Clip 15.
I have been fighting injustice my entire life. That fight has continued as your mayor. Despite our pleas, when the federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief, I put the people of New York before party and politics.
Now, as part of our coverage here, Fred posted this story earlier today, and it's on our Facebook page. Mayor Adams allegedly solicited and demanded bribes, including free and heavily discounted luxury travel benefits from a Turkish official, the indictment alleges, noting that the official was seeking Adams' help pertaining to regulations of the Turkish consulate in Manhattan.
That means nothing to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. What I'm saying is that this is a
it's a big story.
It's a big story. It's going to be hard to understand for the average person. But basically, the charges are against the mayor of New York City, which has never been done before.
It is first.
The sitting mayor of New York City is under an indictment by the federal government on that he took bribes and some kind of fraud that went on. Whether it's true or not, I guess he'll have his day in court. Mayor Adams will. The question, I guess, Fred, would be: would the mayor of the largest city in America, would he stay on the job while he's under indictment and while he's have to prepare for like a court hearing and a court trial and that kind of thing?
He is, as we speak right now, he is holding a news conference. All the networks seem to be covering it at the moment. But he said in this statement last night that, yes, he does plan to stay on the job. He says, I am innocent of all the charges.
Okay.
Apparently, according to the Associated Press, Governor Hochul has the power to remove him. We'll wait and see on that. But one of the interesting things that the mayor said last night in the video that he produced.
Remove him without a conviction?
Without a conviction.
Huh. Okay.
we'll have to see on that. Like I say, it was a one line in the AP story. However, what he said last night was kind of interesting, and you would think that he is a Republican. He made the statement he believes he is being prosecuted and persecuted by the Biden Justice Department because he, Mayor Adams, has openly criticized the Biden administration for their border policies and for what that has meant for his city. Over 200,000 illegals have descended on his city over the last several months. He has been openly critical of the Biden administration on that. And what he said in this statement last night, he feels there is a vindictive spirit within the Biden Justice Department and that he is paying a price for that.
Ray, did you read this?
Yeah, I did. And I have no doubt, Fred, he's right about this. There's always politics at play why in the world at this moment in history would they drop an indictment, a sealed indictment on the mayor of New York City, something that's never been done before? It's yet more of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, their lawfare. Now, as to the actual charges, Tim, who knows, right? I mean,
That's what I meant by my statement a few minutes ago. I said that means nothing to me. I didn't mean to say I'm disinterested in the story. What I'm saying is it's the charges. I'm not going to take time to read them beyond, beyond.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Oh, I mean, one of them had to do with something to do with the Turkish, a building that was going to house a new building, a new place for the Turkish consulate, and special favors that were granted. Look, the special favors in big cities are granted all the time, right?
Right. People are bribed all the time.
People get bribed all the time. Stuff happens all the time. But I think, Fred, the bigger story here is you cannot separate this from the fact that it's probably his retribution, getting even.
I want to talk about that more in just a minute. Let me just say this, too, about our system here in the United States of America, our government system, and politicians and officials and accountability and all this. It is very. We joke. I say there's bribery everywhere, and there is, but the United States of America, better than any country in the world. We have our faults, and people are human all over the world, and they'll take bribes and money and pay to play and all this stuff that happens, but we can't normalize that. Because, and I'm not saying Mayor Adams is guilty of that. I'm just saying that in most of the world, probably 90% of the world, bribery is not considered wrong. It's considered the way of the world. Huh?
It's true.
It's the cost of doing business, right?
Yes, it's the cost of doing business. So you want off the hook in, I don't know, some country in Africa or the Middle East somewhere, you just pay the cops, they look the other way. And I'm just saying that is the way of the world. But that's why so many countries in the world are impoverished and are corrupt. And so we can't let that we can't let that go in the U.S. You have to have accountability by your government officials, whether it's the mayor or whether it's a city councilman or whether it's a congressman or Nancy Pelosi's husband, who, again, cashed in on a stock tip. Did you see that?
Yes.
Oh, good grief. Anyway, what I'm saying is if you allow for just open bribery and fraud and corruption, then the whole trust in our system of government will collapse.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say here?
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to have. So I don't know what the FBI seized the mayor's phone
early this morning. Yeah.
I mean, they're serious about this. It does make you wonder, though. There's two things going on here. It does make you wonder. He claims that he is being a target because he spoke out against Biden and Harris, their administration, for allowing all these. What do you say, 100,000?
There's been at least, I think, 200,000 go into New York.
Remember, he was saying the federal government is not doing anything to help us here in New York.
Yes.
and it's going to collapse our budget here. We can't handle this. And he was open about it. And so he even went down to Washington, D.C. Remember that? And I don't even think Biden even met with him, which is kind of odd because you have the mayor of the largest Democratic city in America. By Democratic, I mean they vote Democrat all day, every day in New York. He's also a black fella.
Yes.
So you want to get charges of racism? Is that what could Adams come out this afternoon and say, with Al Sharpton, and say, hey, I'm being persecuted because I'm a black man? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I know.
Or is he guilty? And again, that'll have to be proven in court. But it's just an odd situation where you have Democrats coming after Democrats.
Yes, and the timing of it. But also in this
right in the middle of the election.
Yeah, in this AP story.
I think the quote from Donald Trump this morning was, "Now you know how it feels." End quote. I'm just kidding. Kidding. Go ahead.
But in this AP story, it says his campaign received more than $10,000 in matching funds as a result of the false certifications, according to the indictment. In terms of what we of campaign funds, $10,000 is nothing. So that also leads to some suspicion. You're going to go after a politician for $10,000? When you're talking about campaign contributions of millions of dollars that, Harris and others get. So there's a bad smell to this right now. We'll have to wait and see the evidence, because I think along with the Mayor Adams, there are 4 or 5 other
his
members.
Circle, the circle around him in leadership, they've already been, there's 3 or 4 of them, you're right, who are high-level officials in New York City have also, I mean, this is a big sting operation. Would you say sting? Big operation that the FBI is undertaking on city officials in New York.
One of the critics this morning saying he needs to quit is AOC.
Yeah, I've got her tweet here, or post.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Well, so she said Mayor Adams needs to resign.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. But she's been a big proponent of all of these illegals coming to New York. She's all in on that.
Yeah. All right.
In related news, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is probably one of the likely people to be elected mayor of New York City. He is interested in the job. Several people are already.
I thought he was disgraced.
Predicting.
That doesn't last long for a Democrat.
That was last weekend. It's
in
not,
New York,
not today.
In New York, that's arbitrary.
Badge of honor.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There will be people in New York that will bring up his COVID-19 policies as leading to the deaths of elderly people. Many people have already said that, but
he got in trouble for hitting on all those women.
Yeah.
There was like a parade of women who said he was inappropriately dealing with them.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story, Chris.
Well, a lot of people are talking about Vice President Kamala Harris.
Are they?
Yes, they are. Sit-down interview with MSNBC's Stephanie Rule. Kamala Harris's comments have been viewed by millions of people thus far on X, formerly known as Twitter. One of the things that's really trending is Kamala's frequent use, I should say, of words like holistically many times in a short soundbite. Here's an example. See how many times you can spot the use of the word
holistically. Is this yesterday?
Yes.
Yesterday, okay.
Clip 2.
Some of the work is going to be through what we do in terms of giving benefits and assistance to state and local governments around transit dollars and looking holistically at the connection between that and housing, and looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing for working people.
All right, Fred, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is for a free lunch by me at the burger joint of your choice, okay? Without looking, can you spell holistically only one try? Go ahead.
HOLISTIC. Holistic?
Yeah, but you got to finish it off. I said holistically.
HOLISTIC.
Holistic, okay, but this down in L-Y?
And if it's Ali, holistically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Holistically, it would be L-Y at the end.
Is he right, Ray?
I'm glad you didn't ask me. I don't have a clue.
Is he right?
No. HOLISTICALLY.
A-L-L-Y.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
That's one of them fancy English words that, we say it one way and it's spelled differently.
Good try, though, my Canadian friend. You people don't know how to spell. Holistically. I guess if you ask Vice President Harris the same question, she wouldn't be able to spit it. Even though she spit it out 3 times in, 20 seconds or something?
3 times in 23 seconds.
She just loved the word yesterday.
Listen, this is getting almost surreal. I'm talking about her. She, I don't know, how do I say this? I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but, and I don't want to, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer either, but listen, she may be able to ace test. You know people who can ace test, but they can't do anything with common sense? We all know people like that, huh? I couldn't do either. But anyway, but she's not smart enough. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know how to say that without, I'm sure she's not smart enough and articulate enough to me to communicate to be president of the United States. That's just how I feel about it. Her politics aside. Go ahead, Chris.
But she has a tough job.
What, saying holistically 3 times?
No,
practice that.
She has a tough job trying to defend the record of the last 3.5 years. And when you've got to stick handle, we say in hockey, when you have to stick handle around the truth in order to make yourself sound good, you end up sounding like this.
Yes. Go ahead.
One safety net that she has to fall back on is the fact that networks such as MSNBC will defend her or find ways to explain away her problems. For example, here is the same lady Kamala is talking to, Stephanie Ruhle, defending the interview. Clip 4.
Work, and one could watch that and say, well, she didn't give a clear, direct answer. That's okay, because we are not talking about clear or direct issues.
What?
That was MSNBC?
Yes, Stephanie Ruhle. I have worked with countless individuals who would give their right arm to get a call from a cable television news outlet, and they never get the call. And they have people like that getting these jobs.
Yeah.
I mean,
she never gave a direct answer, but that's okay.
Because these are not direct issues. Oh, man.
I'll tell you what.
They're talking about the economy.
It's like I said a couple days ago. This election is whether you're for or against Donald Trump. To me, that's what it is. Either you're for or against Donald Trump. Now, it is for or against her, too. Of course, that is an election, I mean, I'm kind of being duh here. But, I mean, what I'm saying is I think most people are going to vote one way or another not because they're necessarily for that Trump or Harris. It's because they're against Harris or Trump. You see what I'm saying? I think that's going to be the number one motivating factor, and so we'll see who wins in that situation. But she would be best just to stay out of the media, okay? Just stay out of because she hasn't done. When you haven't done well in 3 years doing media interviews, even Oprah Winfrey looked at her with a blank stare the other day. she's just not good at that, and that's okay. Some people aren't. Some people are not good on their feet. They're not. They may be good, doing paperwork somewhere, but they're not good, quick answers that people can understand. And it just sounds like when you roll out the word holistically 3 times in 20 seconds, that says to me, I practiced that last night in the mirror. To make sure I could get that word down, because doesn't that sound smart? Doesn't that sound? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's been coached
holistically. At first, I thought that may be a WH, but it's not. It's H, right?
Yep.
It's H.
All right. We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Have you heard about the new preacher who was attending Vacation Bible School at the church? It was the day after the preacher had moved in, and he was going to each of the classes in order to get acquainted with the children. In one class of youngsters, he decided to test their Bible knowledge. He looked at one young boy and asked him a question. "Johnny, do you know who knocked down the walls of Jericho?" The youngster, taken by surprise at the question, shot back his reply. "It sure wasn't me, preacher. I ain't touched 'em." Well, the new preacher, wishing to discuss the boy's reply with the teacher, turned to speak. But before he could say a word, the teacher was already talking. Now, preacher, Johnny is a good boy, and if he said he didn't do it, then I can promise you he did not do it." There was a pause. Then the teacher addressed the other students in the class. "Did any of you children knock down the walls of Jericho?" One after another, they replied that they did not do it. The preacher was so upset that he turned and walked out of the room. On Sunday night, he had a call meeting with the church and their board to discuss the situation. He reported the incident to the board and asked what they intended to do about it. After a moment of silence, the chairman of the board spoke. "Preacher, we see no point in making a big issue out of this matter. The board will pay for the damages and charge it off to vandalism." And the tale goes that the preacher fainted then and there. Well, the person who isn't familiar with the Scriptures has shortchanged himself. For the Scriptures do indeed contain the world's greatest source of inspiration and help. A person not versed in Scripture has no knowledge of verses such as this one. "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall become like wool." Neither would that person be able to gain strength from a verse such as this. "Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved." If a person is mentally and physically tired and has no knowledge of Scripture, he would miss a true source of help in this verse. "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." The person seeking forgiveness and without knowledge of Scripture would be without this verse. "As far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from us." The Bible is a very important book with immeasurable wealth for those who are willing to familiarize themselves with it. Henry Ward Beecher once said, "The Bible is God's chart for you to steer by, to keep you from the bottom of the sea, and to show you where the harbor is, and how to reach it without running on rocks and bars." John Greenleaf Whittier put it in a poem entitled Miriam. It goes like this. "We search the world for truth. We call the good, the pure, the beautiful, from all old flower fields to the soul. And weary seekers of the best, we come back laden from our quest to find that all the sages said is in the book our mothers read." Do yourself a favor. Acquaint yourself with the Scriptures. By the way, who did knock down the walls of Jericho?
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
"You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Jeremiah 29, verse 13.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues. Today's Issues, the name of this program, here on American Family Radio. Tim, Fred, Chris, and Ray. That's the four of us today. And now joining us is Jenna Ellis. Jenna is host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, 7 to 8 o'clock Central Time each weekday morning here on American Family Radio. And also, Jenna is a constitutional attorney and has written at least one book. Jenna, have you written more than one book or what?
Just one book so far, but I have a couple ideas for some others that I might work on soon. So we can say that's TBD on the sequels.
I got you. So you, I didn't, to be announced?
To be determined.
To be determined.
Oh, yeah. TBD.
It's not a boomer reference, so I understand why,
I know what TBA means. To be announced. That's when I look for the game time, and they say TBA.
TBA.
I go, this is annoying. I want to know what time kickoff is. So you live in Central Florida. What's going on there with the weather right now?
Yeah, so the hurricane is supposed to hit the Big Bend area of Florida and, of course, the West Coast the hardest. So thankfully, here in Central Florida, it's actually been pretty calm. We had some really strong wind and rain about an hour and a half ago, but right now it's actually pretty calm and just barely drizzling outside. So I saw all of the videos of the caravans from Tampa Bay and some of the West Coast that were coming into Central Florida yesterday. So it's good that anyone who is in that predicted disaster zone does evacuate. And I also had Jimmy Patronis, who is Florida's chief financial officer, on this morning, and he's also one of the fire chiefs there, talking about how important it is to ensure that you do take precautions and you are safe. So, I stocked up on water and dog food for the puppies and, made sure that we can just stay in today.
Yeah. A problem, I don't want to get this, Ed, why we ask you on, I know you're not an expert on insurance, but there is a real problem in the state of Florida with home and property insurance right now, right?
Right.
Because is it because of the hurricane? At least one hurricane is going to hit every year. Is that the reason for that, or is there other reasons?
Well, I think it depends on who you ask, and the legislature has certainly contemplated, some forms of relief, and Governor DeSantis's office has as well. Obviously, you'll have higher insurance rates if you have property that's more vulnerable to some of these natural disasters. But, I don't personally think it's really the fault of Governor DeSantis or some of these other things. A lot of it has to do with inflation, and we can call it Bidenflation, of course, because everything is a lot more expensive, including interest rates for homes, and that's where I think the Democrats are trying to push their kind of Marxist communist view. You'll own nothing and be happy, and so a lot more people are renting instead of buying. I'm currently, even though this is my second year living here in Florida, I'm renting instead of buying because of the interest rates. But one of the things that Jimmy Patronis said this morning that I think is really helpful is, especially in the wake of some of these natural disasters like hurricanes, if you have a claim for insurance, make sure that you know that you are taking your time and you're talking to an agent from your own insurance company. There are a lot of scammers that just camp out and try to get you to sign away your claims. And so he had some really good comments on my show that everyone can listen to the rebroadcast at afr.net and click on that icon for Jenna Ellis in the morning.
Also, it's just pretty common sense. If you build a bunch of condos and houses on the beaches and hurricanes come and blow them down, and that happens multiple times, guess what? State Farm and Farm Bureau and Prudential and all these companies are going to say, we're going to have to jack these rates up because the risk for us is great. I'm just saying that is how business works.
It is, and of course we're talking about hurricanes on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, it's been those wildfires.
Yeah.
And you've got insurance companies, and I'm not going to name them because I just don't remember which ones, some of the big ones. They're refusing to insure now.
Just outright refusing?
Outright.
Okay.
They're not going to insure them.
Because they can't afford the losses because those wildfires wipe out.
Yeah, that's right.
Billions of dollars worth of property.
And insurance companies are moving in that direction. They'll insure you if they think you're in a safe zone.
Right.
But that's going to be a problem for Florida,
going forward.
Yeah. That you're going to have insurance companies saying, hey.
Well, it already is. I read people's comments, and they say, Governor Ron DeSantis or the Republicans in the legislature, they're to blame for the housing insurance crisis in Florida. I'm going, the hurricanes, natural disasters don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. They're going to come to Florida, as they have for 100 years that we know of, and then prior to that, before it was inhabited. What do you make, Jenna, of the federal government indicting the Democrat African-American mayor of New York City?
Yeah, this is a wild story, isn't it? And, you know, as you mentioned to me yesterday, this is Democrats coming after Democrats.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Eric Adams' defense is basically saying that because he's trying to protect New Yorkers from the invasion through the border and the open border crisis of the Biden administration, he thinks this is retaliation. And, you know, I didn't really hear him standing up for Donald Trump when Donald Trump was saying that, you know, there's a lot of lawfare from the Democrats. So it's pretty ironic here that he's claiming that. And yet, you know, he kind of didn't speak up when Donald Trump was claiming lawfare. So, you know, maybe he's taking a page from Donald Trump's playbook, and we'll see how it goes. But you know, the indictment was just unsealed, and it'll be very interesting to see.
How do you unseal an? By the way, how do they formally unseal an indictment? Is it like
it's just
a game show?
No, it's not. It's not like a big envelope like you have at the Oscars.
Oh, that's
Wouldn't
what I
that
was
be
wondering.
fun? You know, yeah, that'd be more entertaining for sure. Maybe we'll get there at some point with all of the entertainment lawfare going on.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting because that could divide the city of New York because, by that I mean along racial lines, for example.
Yeah.
Potentially. I mean, it could. But the mayor, he has a point that I think a lot of people think of the reason that the feds are going after him is because he was openly critical, as Fred said earlier, of Biden and Harris for letting the 100,000, whatever it was, Fred, you said.
At least.
Illegal immigrants flood into his city and gave him no help at all. Remember that?
Yeah, well, and it does seem that at least the feds are trying to make a show out of this because Eric Adams' attorney also said that they sent about 10 or a dozen or so federal agents to come and seize his cell phone. And he said, we would have been happy to just hand it over. So, you know, it seems just like they did with the Mar-a-Lago raid. It seems like there's a lot of showmanship here and kind of this display of power, maybe to send a message.
Hey, it's Chris here. I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but has not Joe Biden at some point this year several times warned against, like, Donald Trump is going to weaponize government and weaponizing government is wrong?
I think that he said it like, but yes. I mean, we got the gist. Yes.
So the reason I'm asking that is because we're looking at a potential situation in which the Biden administration is perhaps weaponizing government to go after somebody critical of this government.
And it wouldn't be the first time, right? I mean, this is what's so ridiculous is that the Democrats are claiming that Trump is the one who's a threat to democracy. Meanwhile, they are weaponizing their institutions to go after their political opposition. And now Eric Adams may fall into that category, even though he is a Democrat. He may be political opposition. And so, you know, this is why the committee and, you know, the House Oversight Committee and the Task Force on Weaponization of Government, I mean, I wish that they would have accomplished more, but it's Congress. And, you know, they go pretty slowly on some of these things, but obviously that should never happen. The people in power should not be able to use government power just to go after their political opponents, whether it's Republicans or Democrats.
Right.
Jenna, let me ask a question broader here about politics. We're about 5.5 weeks out from the election, and I'm not asking who do you think is going to win on November the 5th, but give us your sense of the state of the race. 5.5 weeks out, how does the landscape look to you, and who has the advantage at this moment, would you say?
Wow. You know, I think it depends on who you ask, but since you're asking me my opinion, I think it is going to be very close. I think that Trump needs to win Pennsylvania. There's actually been a lot of newly registered Republican voters because of Scott Pressler's work on the ground that's not getting a lot of media attention, but it is really important because 2 of the counties that went for Biden in 2020 are now at least have more registered Republicans. Whether they get out and vote remains to be seen. North Carolina is probably a loss for Trump, especially considering all of the scandal going on with Mark Robinson, the gubernatorial candidate there. And so it's really going to depend on some of these swing states. But overall, if the Trump campaign can make a clear and focused message talking about the border invasion, talking about the economy, the things that actually matter to the voters, I think that he will have an edge up. But Kamala Harris, of course, is going to be talking about the social issues, talking about abortion, LGBTQ, and of course running on, joy and fanfare and vagueness. And that seems to be winning over a lot, unfortunately, of women voters. And so some of the analysis that our good friend Steve Deace from The Blaze, who's a regular on my show, has posted is that, a lot of the turnout of women are going to be very important in this election. So I think that we really just need to pray for our country is the bottom line here. And we need to pray that people will vote for the truth over, kind of what they see from the mainstream media or maybe over feelings.
Well, Fred's got some breaking news from Pennsylvania. Over to you, Fred.
Yeah, just outside of Philadelphia, there is a bakery. I'm not sure if you heard about this, Jenna.
Yes.
Around election time, for several election cycles now, over the recent years, you can buy a blue-colored cookie if you support the Democrat, or a red icing cookie if you support the Republican. And this has taken fire. This bakery now is even getting orders from across the country. But as of yesterday, actually as of Tuesday, Trump was leading Harris 12,558 cookies to Harris's 889 cookies. So she's been pretty accurate.
He's crushing her in the cookie vote.
Maybe we need to have the Electoral College changed into cookies. We can have electoral cookies now.
I'll vote for that.
Electoral cookies. It sounds like a very sweet way to end the election.
Absolutely.
All right, Jenna, what do you got coming up tomorrow on your show? Do you know yet?
Yes, I am actually interviewing Tyler O'Neill. He's the managing editor of the Daily Signal, and he has a really great book out called The Woke-topus, which is all about how the dark money in the federal government has its tentacles all around Washington, and who is actually controlling what conservatives refer to as the deep state. So I'm going to have him on for a good portion of the show. He's really excellent, and the Daily Signal is a really good outlet, and so he's going to be my primary guest tomorrow. You don't want to miss it.
All right. Thanks, Jenna. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, that's Jenna Ellis joining us this morning here on Today's Issues on American Family Radio. By the way, I mentioned the movie Reagan a couple weeks ago, and my wife and I saw that, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah,
have you guys seen
Monday.
that yet?
I saw it on Monday. It's so well done.
Yeah, Dennis Quaid.
Oh, he did it.
So it's still in theaters.
It is. It is.
Okay.
And
it's doing a lot better than some of the critics thought it would.
It's making a whole lot of money.
Ray, have you had a chance to see it yet?
I have not, but I've read the reviews, and it looks like the moviegoers across the country love this movie, the story of Ronald Reagan.
Now, Rotten Tomatoes is a where critics rate a movie. True?
Yeah, I think
Or critics and the general public.
And the general public, right?
Okay, so Dennis Quaid, the actor who plays Ronald Reagan, was commenting on this and how the Rotten Tomatoes, that's for those who don't know, that's a website where that's just a clever name for a website where people remember it. But the critics, the Hollywood critics of movies, are like almost unanimous in their condemnation of the movie Reagan, for various and sundry reasons. But the people who are going to the movie are like 99 stars out of 10.
Right.
People love the movie when they see the movie, and so it just makes you once again think the reason the critics don't like the movie is because they don't like Ronald Reagan and his politics. So it wouldn't matter if you had, an Oscar-winning performance by Dennis Quaid. The ultra-liberal, uber-liberal media critics wouldn't like it anyway. That's what it appears.
Yeah. You know what? One of the things I enjoyed about the movie, it just refreshed my memory once again about Ronald Reagan's, I'll put it this way, relationship with the Russians at that point, the Soviet Union.
Mikhail Gorbachev.
Yeah. Of course, there were several leaders before Gorbachev.
Yeah, they died.
And they all died. But how he dealt with Gorbachev. And basically, he he called his bluff and said, okay, if you don't do this, this is what we are going to do. And Gorbachev backed down, and of course that wall in Germany came down, a famous moment in Reagan's time in the office.
Well, it's one of the top moments in the 20th century.
It is.
I would say a top, maybe a top 10 moment historically in the 20th century for world history.
Yeah, but it kind of reminded me of what we have heard from former President Trump, is that now what Trump has been saying in recent months during the campaign is that the world is on fire. We've got so much going on right now, Ukraine, Middle East, et cetera, because, according to Trump, Mr. Biden is perceived as being so weak. Mr. Trump, on the other hand, says, when I was president, things were calm because I believed in that ideology, political ideology, that you get peace through strength. And so I was just reminded that's how Reagan operated, and that's what former President Trump says he would continue if he's given another term in office. He believes, he has stated publicly a couple of times now, that if he's elected in November, that he will bring an end to the Ukrainian war even before he's inaugurated in January. For what it's worth. That's out there.
All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story, Chris.
One of the things that we cover a lot at AFN is the issue or our issues involving education. And a lot of our audience is, a homeschool mom, a homeschool family that follows AFN for all kinds of news. I bring this up because of our audience there. And we have a lot of listeners and readers, praise God, in Arizona, where some homeschool moms have sued the state of Arizona because they say the Arizona Attorney General has made it very difficult, if not downright impossible, for homeschool families to use an ESA program, an educational savings account program, to get things like books and workbooks and flashcards and school supplies. The Attorney General there wants them to submit all kinds of paperwork justifying why they're using it to get things as simple as brown bear, what say you? And, simple little children's books here.
What is an educational, I'm sorry.
An educational savings program?
I should know that.
It's basically a program that will give you some money to put towards educational materials of your choosing.
Like a tax break or something?
Kind of like an HSA, health savings account.
So is it like tax deductible or something? What is the?
It's basically their money given back to them to spend however they want. And the Attorney General now wants to make that difficult for homeschoolers to be able to use it for homeschool purposes.
You know what this is, Ray?
No, but, yes and no. Only generally, I don't really know what they're doing there in Arizona. So you're saying that homeschool families who ought to have a right to this money back from the state is hassling them and not giving it back,
yes.
Right?
They're being discriminated against because they're homeschooling.
Bingo.
That's what they're saying.
And that is what the Goldwater Institute told me in a story that is airing today. Now, the Goldwater Institute is a think tank in addition to being a law firm, and they are representing—
In Arizona?
Yes, and they are representing these two homeschool moms. I have a soundbite here of Matt Beinberg at Goldwater Institute, and he's talking to us about the hypocrisy of the left, because they always claim Republicans want to ban books, that here they are complaining about people wanting to get books. Clip 11.
The left for the last several years has talked about how, parents are trying to do book bans because they have concerns about, content that's sexually explicit in the classroom, for instance. They call that book banning. But then they turn around and say parents need a permission slip to read Brown Bear to their students, to their own kids, as part of this program. And so I think it's also just important to recognize the hypocrisy of the left, all the talking points that they use, and arguing to again basically say that we don't trust parents to make these decisions.
Now, I did reach out to the Attorney General's office there in the great state of Arizona, and the Attorney General's office told me they stand by their actions.
Okay. I would have thought Arizona would be homeschool friendly for the most part.
You certainly would think that, wouldn't you? Western state?
Yeah, maybe they are overall. Maybe it's just this is an Attorney General's office that somebody has a axe to grind with homeschoolers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's a court case, right?
It is.
All right, I want to talk about something much more important than religious freedom. And that is former President Trump is going to a college football game on Saturday night.
That's
Do you know this?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to go to the Alabama and Georgia football game in Tuscaloosa on Saturday night. And according to Fox News, by the way, of course, if you want to look at this politically, and almost everything is politically when you're in a presidential, Yeah. Trump's not going to Tuscaloosa just to. I think he knows that all eyes of the college football world and much of the nation will be on that game, because that game is like number 2 versus number 3 or something like that. I mean, it's a big historic rivalry, Georgia versus Alabama. But also, he needs to win Georgia. You know what I'm saying?
So he's going to cheer for Georgia.
I don't know whether you do that.
No, he probably
Tuscaloosa or not.
Probably take a neutral stance. Oh, he's going to win Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump's going to win Alabama anyway. It wouldn't matter if he said I'm for Georgia. He's going to win but it is going to be. But what I noticed was, by the way, how would you know the guy I feel most sorry for?
Who?
The head of security. And
I was going to say Secret Service.
Yeah. I don't know what his name is. Let's just say it's Bill. And last Monday, Bill gets a call. Hey, Bill. Somebody from the Secret Service wants you on the phone. Hello, this is Bill, head of security. Yeah, Bill. President Trump's going to fly in on Saturday and be at the football game.
Yes.
You guys make arrangements for us there?
I'll tell you this, though. I'd put more faith in Alabama security right now than I would the Secret Service.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, and given all the threats floating around, I wonder, will they put, I just, off the top of my head, are they going to put people are going to have to go through a metal detector to get into the stadium? Maybe they already do. I don't know.
Hey, and I'm just curious, could a university say, with all due respect, we don't want that problem?
Sure.
Of a presidential motorcade and security and thousands of people we don't know, it'd be a nightmare for us. Could they just say no? I mean, I don't know.
Maybe, but I think the networks are going to love this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be, you know how TV cuts away to show Taylor Swift at the Chiefs game? They'll cut away several times to show Trump in the press box eating a hamburger or something.
Oh, he's going to eat a hamburger, all right.
He does love burgers.
Well,
he likes Coke, too.
Fox News is reporting what the diet will be. You want me to read this to you?
Sure. No, really, for real.
Yeah, somebody got a breaking story right here.
Wow.
It says Trump, who is expected to attend the game between number 2 Georgia, number 4 Alabama, and Tuscaloosa, has reportedly, and this is reportedly, so this is still not, I don't know if it's confirmed or not, requested a meal at the ball game that includes 2 McDonald's Filet-O-Fish sandwiches with cheese. Domino's pizza. Surely they said no for him.
No,
hopefully.
No.
Stadium hot dogs.
Yeah, there you go.
And a Diet Coke, according to Alabama businessman Rick Mayer's buyout.
I love the Diet Coke part.
The Diet Coke cancels out.
Got to watch those carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Domino's pizza.
2 McDonald's. Well, he's a big boy. So, I mean, I could see him knocking down 2 Filet-O-Fish.
I can circle back to something involving Reagan. You might remember this back in the day, Tim.
Yeah.
It would have been, I think, when you were in college. Reagan actually visited the Tuscaloosa area when he was president and ate at a McDonald's in Northport, Alabama, and it was like basically an historic landmark there in Northport because Reagan ate a burger there.
Well, I knew that Trump liked Big Macs. I didn't know he was a Filet-O-Fish guy.
With cheese. With cheese.
Oh, with cheese. It's just funny to me that a guy who's a multi-billionaire who could have chefs from all over the world come and cook for him. His dream every day is, can I make it to McDonald's?
That's right.
To each his own, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's exactly right.
Hey, and McDonald's does have, that
Big Mac and the fries.
Fish sandwich is very popular.
He's a man of the people.
All right. We poor Bill. Poor Bill at security at the University of Alabama. He didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Dr. Travis was a man that was full of life.
Bert Harper of Exploring the Word.
He loved the Word of God, and it came across in the classroom. Dr. Travis put in my heart a desire to know God through His Word. And that's what we're trying to do on Exploring the Word.
Exploring the Word, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on American Family Radio. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Steve Pugh. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and other officials provide an update on Hurricane Helene this morning. The governor says the storm is expected to make landfall sometime later tonight, and many areas are at risk of heavy rainfall and dangerous storm surge. DeSantis also says many areas are at risk for tornadoes.
We have overnight had 14 different tornado warnings. There's likely to be more of those throughout today. Warnings were issued in Palm Beach, Hendry, Glades, and Collier County.
Helene is currently a Category 2 storm, but Governor DeSantis emphasizes there is a chance it can further intensify. Residents are being advised to pay attention to emergency alerts and to evacuate if they can. A House task force holds their first hearing on Capitol Hill investigating the assassination attempts against former President Donald Trump. Today's session focuses on the July 13th shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania, where the former president was shot in the ear and a rally-goer lost their lives. In the opening remarks, Chairman Mike Kelly, who represents the area surrounding Butler, blamed the Secret Service for what he says were multiple failures on that day.
What we do know is that the documents and testimony point to several fundamental failures on July 13th. In the days leading up to the rally, it was not a single mistake that allowed crooks to outmaneuver one of our country's most elite group of security professionals. There were security failures on multiple fronts.
The United States is at risk of a credit downgrade as the national debt continues to rise. Edward Lawrence has more from the White House.
At some point, the United States will not be able to cover the interest payments on the debt as well as all the other priorities that the government wants. Now, right now, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that the federal government will finish fiscal year 2024 with a debt-to-GDP ratio of 99%. Now, some experts say it could reach 100% with the final number. Regardless, that's the largest debt-to-GDP ratio since the end of World War II. So under the Biden-Harris administration, the national debt grew by $6.5 trillion over the past 3.5 years. In 4-year term of former President Trump, he added $7.9 trillion to the federal debt, although the majority of that was COVID spending.
The Kentucky sheriff accused of murdering a district court judge enters a not guilty plea.
43-year-old Letcher County Sheriff Sean Steins pleading not guilty to first-degree murder in a remote hearing in Carter County, 100 miles away from the Letcher County courthouse that remains closed as a crime scene, where the sheriff is accused of gunning down 54-year-old District Judge Kevin Mullins last week, following an apparent argument between the two men in the judge's chambers. What that argument was about and motive are unclear. Steins remains jailed without bond. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Vice President Kamala Harris has voiced concerns about corporate greed and price gouging, but not everyone agrees businesses are to blame for high prices. Chris Woodward has more.
Dan Savickas of Taxpayers Protection Alliance says it is ridiculous to think today's prices are the result of greedflation.
This notion of greedflation, that the inflation that's been caused as a result of the Biden-Harris administration's trillions of dollars in excess spending, the notion that it's as a result of corporate greed is absolutely ridiculous. And to believe that, you'd have to also believe that lower prices are a result of corporate benevolence.
Harris has promised to do something about prices. She often points to her background as a, quote, middle-class kid to try to tell voters that she knows how they feel. Over the summer, Harris even touted price controls in grocery stores, although her campaign later tried to walk that back. I'm Chris Woodward.
Price controls routinely lead to shortages. The way Vice President Harris is talking about grocery prices and cutting down on price gouging when it comes to groceries, if you start to have shortages in groceries, that's food shortages. That's what we see in countries like Venezuela. And even some of the most left-wing economists have said price controls on food is one of the most destructive things you can do.
I'm Chris Woodward.
The Labor Department reports today that applications for jobless claims fell by 4,000 to 218,000 for the week of September 21st. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pete.
Streaming.afa.net has now become AFA Stream, and you can find it at stream.afa.net. You see, we removed the letters ing. Our experts have determined that eliminating those 3 keystrokes, multiplied over hundreds of thousands of AFA Stream visits, could reduce the national debt and maybe increase the gross domestic product. AFA Stream, formerly streaming.afa.net. Improvements to the economy are purely theoretical. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Issues, the name of the show you're listening to here on AFR. I'm Tim with Fred and Ray, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody.
Good morning, Brother Steve. By the way, we mentioned this last hour, but the big, of course, there's several news stories that are big nationally, but this hurricane that's out in the Gulf of Mexico that's going to make landfall tonight.
Yeah.
That looks like it's going to be very damaging to North Florida and Georgia. We have a lot of listeners in Georgia.
Yes.
We have a radio station in Jacksonville. Now we have listeners who listen to the app, who listen on the Gulf Coast there in Florida, but we don't have any radio stations. But we do in South Georgia. We have several, Fred.
Yep.
Probably going to be off the air because this storm is going to, you said it's going to pack hurricane winds, even like 100, 200 miles inland, perhaps?
Inland, they're really worried about Tallahassee and the damage that's going to be done
Valdosta.
there. Yes. Yeah, it's going to be serious.
Yeah.
It really is. So, and it could take, when you talk about power losses, which would affect our radio stations,
right,
for sure, they're talking not just days, weeks.
Yeah.
If this, right now they're saying Category 3, but it could be up to a Category 4 by the time it reaches the shores there tonight around 8 o'clock.
I've been watching a live cam from, I get paid to do that. If you're wondering, I get paid to watch a live cam. No, I've this morning I've had a live cam on my computer from St. George Island.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, if you look at map of Florida, it's right down there by What do you call it, Ray?
Apalachicola.
There, only a Southerner could do that. Yeah, right down there by the cola place. But it's nearby there. It kind of sticks out a little bit into the. So, but you could just, it's fast. The reason I'm watching it, you can just see it. It's progressively every half hour. It's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
The churning of the it's about to come up on this. It's this beach bar that's got a live cam. It'll probably be off by the time I get up there. I keep waiting for it just to blink off. I'm just saying, you're talking about sustained winds of 130.
Yes.
Yeah. And a 20-foot surge.
Have you ever held your hand out?
Yeah.
Going down the highway at 40? Yeah. Imagine tripling that and having that sustained for what, an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Huh? Something like that?
Yeah.
As the hurricane passes?
Yeah. I noticed the networks, normally, very brave people report on these things, but one of the Fox reporters said he was moving away from that area in the corner there.
The Bend?
The
Big Bend?
He was moving over to Perry, which is kind of in that one of those northern inland communities in Florida. That's as close as they're going to get to this for now. Just
because of the wall of water that's coming in?
Because of the water and the winds.
Yeah, the winds.
Keep those people safe.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. You talk about Jim Cantore from the Weather Channel. I don't think Jim Cantore will be anywhere close to where this thing is going to hit.
Yeah,
Steve?
It looks like a monster. And they say, someone said it's the biggest hurricane that they've ever seen in the Gulf. And I'm
Gulf.
I'm assuming that means distance between, how big it is, not the force of the winds or maybe even the storm surge, but this is just a monster across. It's hundreds and hundreds of miles across. So.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Steve, what's your first story?
All right. Well, for a long time, we have been talking about critical race theory, and a lot of people are a little confused about what that means. It's a lot of people saying, in fact, the Southern Baptists took a vote a couple of years ago about whether they should use critical race theory as a way to inform themselves. It's not the worldview that they wanted to take, and it didn't pass, but they wanted to use it to inform their theological discussions. But we are now hearing a little bit of a different story. I want to play you something from a guy named Brian Lazinski. Brian Lazinski was appointed by Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, who's now the vice presidential candidate for the Democrats, to the Minnesota Department of Education. His job was to help write the state's framework for ethnic studies. And he says people talk about CRT in schools, about being, this is a way to look at race and our stories and everything. He says, no, that is not it at all. So I want you to hear what he has to say. This is cut 13.
The first tenet of critical race theory is that the United States as constructed is irreversibly racist. So if the nation state as constructed is irreversibly racist, then it must be done with. It must be overthrown, right? And so we can't be like, oh no, critical race theory is just about telling our stories and divert. It's not about that. It's about overthrow. It's insurgent. You can't be a critical race theorist and be pro-US, okay? It is an anti-state theory that says the United States needs to be deconstructed, period.
Let me ask you this. Okay, number one, who was that we were hearing again?
Guy name is Brian Lazinski.
And what is his position?
He is part of the Minnesota Department of Education. His job is to help implement the framework for the new ethnic studies standards. He puts standards about ethnic studies into the
third question. Who was he appointed by?
He was appointed by Tim Walz.
The vice president candidate.
Vice presidential candidate for
Harris.
With Harris.
And fourth, is there any way we're taking his comments out of context? Is he doing is he explaining something in an objective analysis, analytical way, or is he advocating for what he just said?
Both and, I suppose. This was in a blog.
Sounds like he believes in it.
Yeah, no, he does. This was in a podcast that he was talking about, and the what he said prior to where I started recording was, sometimes you hear in that we're also lying to ourselves when people say things like, "Oh, we use critical race theory in schools." We don't use critical race theory in schools. This is his words before the clip started. And then the first tenet of critical race theory is that the United States has constructed is irreversibly racist. So,
well, okay. So, Ray, that is the teaching of the far left. And remember during the George Floyd riots that
right.
Many of these people and groups said, okay, America is systemically racist. You remember this? As if there's no recovering from it. It's fundamentally racist, and it must be overthrown. So, and that's what this fellow's saying.
Exactly what he was saying.
Right. Look, the key word there's got to be irreversibly. If something is irreversibly racist, then it's not going to be reformed.
Right.
You got to tear it down.
Right.
And start all over again, which, in fact, is what the proponents of critical race theory actually want.
Yes.
To deconstruct the American nation and reconstruct it along their far left-leaning values.
Now, it isn't a shock that somebody like this fellow would promote that, because that's on college campuses all over America, that ideology, that CRT. We got to fight the white man system, Christian, white nationalists, all this colonialism, all this stuff, 1619 or whatever they point back to when slaves were, all this stuff. We got to basically Get rid of America and replace it with a socialist, communist paradise, basically, is what these folks are for. Here's the big takeaway, because that's on college campuses and has been for a while. We saw what happened during the okay, so here's the takeaway. This guy you just heard say this, he was appointed by the man who stands to be the next vice president of the United States.
Yes.
Which means Waltz agrees with him.
One would assume.
I think Waltz is the same. Now, he's not going to, I don't know, he's pretty frank, Waltz is, but I kind of doubt he's going to say it like that guy said it. But he's going to say, well, Harris, she believes in, the Black Lives Matter movement and all social justice and all that. They don't hide it very well. So, but I don't know if they would say it exactly like he said. He said basically we need a revolution.
I tell you what, if I was J.D. Vance, I would be taking those quotes.
Yeah.
And I would be making an ad out of them.
Yeah.
And I would, I hope there are some news agencies that are going to get in contact with the Tim Walz campaign and saying, here's the guy that you appointed. You appointed.
Over education in the state of Minnesota.
And he is calling for the overthrow of the government of the United States.
And you wonder why people are taking their kids out of schools? When you hear about this being forced down their throats?
Well, would it be safe to say he's calling for insurrection?
Yeah, that's what he is calling. Maybe not storming the Capitol, but he's calling about insurrection against the American form of government.
He doesn't specify how to do it, but it's got to be taken out.
What didn't he say? Overthrow it?
Yeah, but I mean,
but he didn't say how. You're right.
Yeah, but
anyway, next story, Steve.
All right, hey, but before I go to the next story, happy birthday, Ray.
Hey, thank you, Steve. Somebody just asked me what I always post food pictures on my Facebook of what I'm eating for my birthday, and Marlene asked me this morning, did I want a chocolate pie or a chocolate cake? And so she's making me a chocolate meringue pie with about 6 inches of meringue on top. So I'm already a happy man.
There you go. There you go. So I know you guys have been talking a little bit about Kamala Harris and her word salads and everything. I want to play you one more Kamala Harris clip because I think it's instructive to talk about her plan or lack of a plan. When she's asked for specifics, she never can offer much.
No.
And this is her. She was at a speech at a economic forum the other day, and this is her talking about her philosophy of governance. This is how she wants to govern the country. And I just listen to this, and then let's talk about what that really means. Cut 12.
As president, I will be grounded in my fundamental values of fairness, dignity, and opportunity. And I promise you I will be pragmatic in my approach. I will engage in what Franklin Roosevelt called bold, persistent experimentation.
Now, if your guiding philosophy of how you're going to run the country is experimentation, that doesn't inspire confidence in me anyway. You?
Yeah. Well, what does that even mean, Steve?
Well, I don't know. When I do an experiment, I'm not being you talk about people, not me, but you talk
She
about
doesn't
people
know.
experimenting.
She doesn't know. Sorry, Steve, interrupted. Go ahead.
You talk about people experimenting with drugs. Let's see what this does. Who knows? This might work.
She doesn't know what that means. Somebody wrote that for her, and she said, hey, this sounds smart.
It doesn't.
No, it does not.
Huh? Yeah. All right, let's listen to this. Does this not sound at least, I'm not talking about her delivery. I'm talking about the conglomerate of words she puts together. Makes you think, huh? We're dealing with a 140 IQ right here. Go ahead and play this.
As president, I will be grounded in my fundamental values of fairness, dignity, and opportunity. And I promise you I will be pragmatic in my approach. I will engage in what Franklin Roosevelt called bold, persistent experimentation.
That's what people don't, that's what she doesn't know what she's saying. Bold experiment, what did she say?
Persistent experimentation.
Yeah, I would say, what is that exactly? She would say, well, it's a
in terms of
holistically looking at the whole thing,
unburdened by what has been.
I would say anyway, it's just all right. I think we beat up on Harris enough today. I think
have we?
Yeah, we have.
All right.
Hey, she's vice president.
Yeah.
You know, she was attorney general of the state of California. She was a United States senator. You know, I'm not talking about her politics, but she has accomplished some things in her,
By appointment. By appointment.
No, she got elected in California.
Oh, I'm talking
statewide.
In recent years, she was chosen by Joe Biden to be his running mate.
Right, she was the chosen one.
Yeah, and she was. Yeah, by the way, she was chosen by
Joe
Biden to be his successor.
Why, Fred?
Because why?
Yeah, why was she chosen to be the VP, Fred?
Why was she chosen to be the VP? Well, she checked a lot of boxes.
Okay.
Okay.
Box checker.
Well said.
No, that's what he
Check the boxes.
He was going to pick a woman of color,
mm-hmm.
and it didn't matter. That was his goal. It was what do you call that when you don't go on credentials or qualifications or things like that? You just go on
a diversity hire.
A diversity hire. She was a diversity hire.
See, when you say that, it's racist. When
Why?
when Joe Biden says it, that's what he's looking for. I mean, he's looking for a woman of color. Oh, you just hired her because she was a woman of color. Oh, how racist can you be? Well,
she was a United States senator. I mean, so he didn't just pick her out of, Las Vegas or somewhere and say, "Hey, you're a woman of color. Come join my ticket." I mean, she did have some standing in the Democrat Party. So. But anyway, next story, Steve.
All right. As soon as Donald Trump said he was running for the White House again, we saw the
going to run in 28?
No. As soon as he announced for 2024.
Oh, okay.
We saw the Democrats invent 4 criminal cases against him to hamper his run. We saw the FBI. We have seen the FBI target pro-lifers. We've seen them target school board moms. In other words, the weaponization of the government is kind of taken now for granted. It's beyond discussion. It has been weaponized against Donald Trump and conservatives and MAGA people. There was a hearing. There was a Republicans, when they got to the House, set up a committee on the weaponization of government. They wanted to talk about this. It's a banana republic thing if you jail or try to jail your political opponents, and that's not what we're about. Republicans wanted to talk about it, so they formed a committee. And of course, the Democrats on any committee, they have chairs on there too. And there's a lady named Stacey Plaskett, Plaskett. She is a delegate from the Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands, she doesn't get to vote, but she does have, she can say, and she works on committees and such. She gets to vote on the committees. She doesn't get to vote as a member of the House. But she said the quiet part out loud here recently at one of these, this committee of the weaponization of government. You're going to hear her say, the first thing you're going to hear her say is why she believes that the weaponization committee was formed in the first place. And basically, she says it's to put everybody to sleep so that they can do away with the Department of Justice, because the Department of Justice has been doing stellar work going after the conservatives. And so you're going to hear her say that this committee wants to put America to sleep until they don't notice that they're doing away with the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice has a very solid mandate, and it is to go after political enemies, according to Ms. Plaskett. Let's listen to Cut 14.
What is the point of this subcommittee? Because it's necessary for the public and the media to hear, to try, and provide cover for the eradication of the Department of Justice and the FBI. We are having these hearings so that you become immune. You become inured to the notion of the removal of the FBI and DOJ, so that those agencies are no longer there to serve as a check against white nationalism, great replacement theorists, Christian nationalists, white fragility, fascists, and the twice impeached, convicted felon, former president and would-be dictator, Donald Trump.
That's their job. They got to go after Trump and the MAGA people. That's
so.
why
So who was this? This is from Virgin Islands. This
she's
lady,
delegate from the Virgin Islands.
Delegate, and she's speaking. And so her thing is she's saying. Her thing is she's saying that we got to keep the department. That the Republicans want to get rid of the Department of Justice
and the FBI,
so they can protect these people she mentioned at the end of that.
Yeah, now the Republicans have never said anything about getting rid of the FBI. They have said a lot about depoliticizing the FBI and the DOJ. In other words, get it back to just doing its job.
But I also found it interesting. She believes the FBI and the Justice Department is to go after Christian nationalists.
Yes.
Is that what she said, right?
That's her words.
You know what? That's such a boogeyman. She's talking about us.
Yes.
She's talking about people like us. That's who she's talking about. What was this? She Christian nationalist. What else did she say? White did she say?
White fragility. She said that. Whatever that means.
That sound like a salad or something. I have a white.
Here's what she wanted to go against: white nationalism.
Okay.
Great replacement theorists, Christian nationalists, white fragility fascists, and Donald Trump.
I just tell you, you put all those groups together. Now, Donald Trump's just one person, but I'm gonna just tell you, there's 0.4% of the American public are represented by the groups she just talked about. Unless you're just saying people who are conservative Christians, maybe who happen to be white, fall into the category she's talking about, Fred.
Yeah, I mean, and this, I got thinking. I'm hearing a little bit of Hillary Clinton here. Basket of
deplorables.
Yeah, I'm hearing a little bit of that.
Yeah,
and these MAGA Republicans.
Let me ask you this, because I've thought about this. I'm a nationalist.
Yeah.
I mean, if being a nationalist, if you define that as you're pro-American and you want the best for your country, you know what I'm saying? And America first, so to speak. Is that?
And what is it about Christianity that she doesn't want?
What did she say? Christian nationalist too?
Christian nationalist.
Yes. Well, which is
here's what these people would tell you, okay? Because I've heard them before. They would tell you that people like us want to impose submersion baptism on everybody in America, and we want to change the laws and make everybody follow the 10 Commandments, or they get put in stockades. That's the kind of handmaiden's tale. That's the image that these people want to project to the general public about people like us, which couldn't be further from the truth.
That's right.
But it works a lot of times because you scare people into thinking, well, those religious nuts,
right-wing zealots.
Yeah, right. They just want to make us all be Christians. You know what I'm saying, or else, and which is not true. You can't make people be Christians, by the way.
Right. Right.
We understand.
You got to come to Jesus on your own.
Right. But it does work.
It's scare tactics, propaganda.
It's a scare tactic. All right, we got about a minute left here.
All right. Hey, do you guys remember Robert Redfield? He was the former director of the CDC before Rachel Walensky. He was the guy at the beginning of the pandemic, right?
Yep.
He has now come out and endorsed Donald Trump and Kennedy. Basically, he's endorsing Donald Trump because
Kennedy's not even running.
Well, no, but he's endorsing Donald Trump because Donald Trump has embraced Robert Kennedy Jr. But this is the guy that was the head of the CDC at the beginning of the pandemic, and now he's on Team Trump.
Is he the guy who has the looks like on Quaker Oats?
Yes,
box?
that's the one.
You know what I'm talking about?
Like Wilford Brimley, almost. Yes.
Yeah.
I've never understood the beard without the mustache by men.
It's a look. That's all we can say, right?
Huh?
It's a look.
Is it like a Quaker thing or?
They do that, but I don't know.
An Amish thing?
I don't know. I've seen that too. Wondered about it.
Yeah, I'm just going like, you got a beard.
Yeah. If
Where's
you can
your
pull
mustache?
it off, good
so
for
you
you.
shave your mustache and leave your beard. Listen, that sounds.
We're not being judgmental.
No.
If it works, it works, right?
We're not supposed to judge.
That's right.
All right, we are out of time. Thank you for yours. We'll see you tomorrow.
You know, there are many ways we can impact the world around us. Some are more direct, like helping our neighbors and serving in our churches. Other ways are broad, like becoming community leaders or supporting missions. Of